Your excuses are lies. So let's get uncomfortable. Because comfort zones are where your dreams go to die. My upcoming album is titled Unfound Paths. I've been working on it for about a year and a half now. And having done as many albums as I have done, when I take a long time on an album like this, it kind of gets me thinking about things like comfort zones and how we go about accomplishing our goals. So I've really been thinking about this a lot. I've found myself really working on the production for this album over the last really half year pretty intensely. And at times I felt like I was just really not getting anywhere, and I was just kind of keeping myself in that zone so that I didn't have to move forward. And it's a question that can be very worth asking of yourself. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And I feel that in the case of Unfound Paths, it was kind of a middle ground where there certainly was a bit of comfort with just going in, working on the production, tweak this, tweak that, see how it sounds. But at the same time, I've definitely made what I believe are very big strides in my understanding of production. And I feel that I have gotten my production up to a new level that I have not achieved before. So it's really kind of hard to say whether I was stuck in a comfort zone and just keeping myself there out of habit, or if I was really making progress. And this I think is something that's very worth it to creative persons to consider this quite a lot, actually. Anytime you find yourself in that position of kind of, what am I doing here? It's really good to ask yourself about your comfort zones and your goals. And today I just kind of want to explore a little bit about how those things can be understood from our creative perspective. A few years ago, my friend Gira started working on writing some science fiction novels, kind of a post-apocalyptic science fiction fantasy type of a thing. And she had been doing some research with a television show that had some similar themes. We were talking one day and she said that she was watching this show and then my voice popped into her head and just asked her the question, are you still doing research or are you just watching a television show now? And this kind of comes down to, I think, almost the crux of this whole thing of, is what you're currently doing moving you toward your goal? If it's not, you might just be stuck in a comfort zone that is time to get yourself out of. So how do we identify whether or not we are in a comfort zone? I am a very introverted person. I like to be alone. And I have had some people in years gone by, particularly when I worked in the public sector, kind of accuse me of being stuck in my comfort zone because I was not going out and socializing. And the thing is, I don't want to go out and socialize. If we wish to define my introversion as a comfort zone, it's a comfort zone I want to be in. This is a really important thing. We can't just say, anytime you're comfortable, you need to get out of that. That's not going to work well at all. And that certainly, for me, is something I don't want to change. I don't want to go out and do the party scene. I've never, even as a kid, I didn't want that stuff. That has just never been me. I've always been the person that's much happier with my nose in a book or just sitting playing guitar, staying away from everything. So I've never wanted that. That's not, in my opinion, a comfort zone. And if someone else wishes to define it into that, that's fine. This isn't about what other people think. This is about what you are going after. So for your own personal comfort zones, you kind of got to ask yourself, is this something that is in fact holding me back from something that I wish to achieve? So if you want to learn a new language, but you are not working on your new language, that might be a comfort zone. You're just kind of holding yourself back from doing that thing that you really do want to do it. And you can ask yourself as well, is there a benefit to this? For me, being someone who, I'm a musician, I I haven't drawn for a while. I kind of want to get back into that. But those creative types of endeavors, my introversion is not just a comfort zone. That's a very strong benefit to being a creative type of person. Whenever you're out hanging out with other people, you're probably not practicing your art. And that means you're not moving yourself closer to that. And so really it depends very strongly on what are your actual goals. So I think that's one of the biggest first steps is identify what is it you are actually trying to achieve, and ask yourself at any time, is this bringing me closer to those goals? If the answer is no, ask yourself if you're okay with that. You don't have to be working toward your goals 100% of the time. In fact, we can't give 100% of the time. I know there are a lot of motivational type speakers out in the world would have it that you should just always be on 100% of the time. But I'm pretty sure that if you were to watch those people from a neutral perspective, when they're not on camera and doing their motivational stuff, they probably relax a little more than they want you to think they do. So that's a big part of it right there. But the other part, I think, is the fear. It's very easy to be afraid of stepping out of your comfort zone. My friend Russ described me once as the person that he knows that is better at getting out of my comfort zone than anyone else that he's ever met. And that's definitely been a strong point for me is, hey, I want to get to X. I'm going to have to start changing some of the things that I do to get there. And I'm usually pretty willing to do that. So we need to ask ourselves, why do we stay in these comfort zones when we want to get out of them, or when we at least claim that we want to get out of them? Well, one reason we stay there is because it's easy. Human beings are very pattern-oriented creatures. We like patterns. We like knowing what's going to happen. We generally have a lot of set scheduling in our day. We typically do things at the same time of day. So breaking out of that is creating a new pattern. And that can be a tough thing to kind of get behind. Yeah, I can just stay in my old pattern, keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah, I want to write a book, but my pattern is come home, turn on my computer and play video games. And you just fall into that pattern. So that's something to really watch for. What are your patterns? Another reason that we stay in comfort zones is because it's addictive. And this I think pretty strongly relates to the concept of being pattern-oriented creatures. But hey, this is what I do, and it feels good to do it. You know, you get a kick out of that video game, or watching a movie, or playing your guitar when you should be making YouTube videos, or writing your book, or doing something else. So that little addictive kick, that's very seductive for humans. And I think we have this kind of internal debate going on all the time. And there's an internal voice that's arguing that you should do this, and there's an internal voice arguing that you should not do it. And the thing is that little inner voice that's saying, that's okay, you don't have to do this. It's good. It's really good at arguing its case and convincing you that you can just keep doing what you're doing. That's fine. You're doing okay as you are. This is a voice that should be told to shut up. But it can be very difficult because it is a very convincing voice. When it comes to this inner dialogue or inner monologue, depending on how your inner voice works, there is a trick. And this is almost going to seem like it's a little circular, but hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have some ideas on how to do this. But if you were going to go out and you're going to run a half marathon, maybe you're not a runner, I'm going to run a half marathon, I've got this goal, and you have some friend or someone in your life saying, you can't run a half marathon. How do you shut that person up? Well, you run a half marathon. Because after you do it, they can't tell you anymore that you can't do it. They kind of have to shut up at that point. You prove them wrong by doing it. And this also works on your inner voice. If your inner voice is like, hey, it's all right, just make some spaghetti. You don't need to sit down and work on your project. Instead, you're like, hey, you know what? I've already eaten, so you shut up. I'm going to sit down and work on my project. This may seem kind of extreme, but keep in mind that your inner voice is your inner voice. You shouldn't be dictated. What you do should not be dictated by your inner voice. What your inner voice says should be dictated by you. And that can be a very big struggle for a lot of people. They have this inner voice going and they don't know how to shut it up. So prove your inner voice wrong until your inner voice starts saying what you want it to say. Or alternatively, before you even have to prove it wrong, just say, hey, inner voice, time for you to shut up. I'm going to go work on my project. And you get your inner voice saying whatever you want it to. That is a big step. And one of the biggest aspects of this, in my opinion, is your why. This is probably the most important part of all of this. What is your why? What's your reason for wanting to do this? Do you want to do this to prove someone wrong? That could be a strong motivator. Do you want to do this to prove yourself wrong? That can be a strong motivator. Maybe you want to do it because it's going to expand your learning process. It's something that you've always had this goal. This is something that you think will bring a lot of possibly financial gain to your life, possibly happiness to your life. Whatever your reason is, your why, if your why isn't strong enough, it's going to be really hard to get out of your comfort zone. So figure out what your why is and make that an integral part of how you move forward with any project that you're working on. It could be said that once you find a way out of the comfort zone you're in and you get into this new position of working on whatever it is you want to work on, that can become a new comfort zone. And if you find that that is the case, which, like I said at the beginning of the video, this kind of sparked this whole thought process as I'm working on this new album. Am I just in a new comfort zone? That's me just reevaluating where I'm actually at. And you may find that at some point you want to get out of that comfort zone. And while working on that album for me has been very much a learning process, I haven't touched it now in about 2 weeks. I've just let it sit. I'm probably going to listen to it again in 3 or 4 days with just fresh ears, decide on any last changes that I might want to make, and then I'm going to put the album out in the very near future because I do want to move forward. I've already recorded most of my 68th album, Asemic Writings Part 4, so that's almost ready to go as well. I'm kind of working ahead on that while waiting on Unfound Paths to make sure that I got the production right on that. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Reevaluating. Is this a comfort zone? How do I want to get out of it? And the one excuse that I will not accept, as I said at the beginning of the video, your excuses are lies. And the biggest of those, the one excuse I will never let anyone tell me is that you don't have time. Because you do have time. You're just not using it. There are so many stories I've got as a guitar teacher of a student coming in and spending the first 5 minutes of their lesson telling me about the latest reruns of their favorite show that they've been watching, and then spending the 5 minutes after that explaining to me that they didn't have time to practice guitar. Your excuses are lies, and particularly the one about not having time. So don't do that. So you ask yourself this question: do you have a comfort zone that you want to get out of? If you don't, that's commendable. Just keep doing what you're doing. But for most of us, we probably do have some place in our lives we can identify that I should change this. I should move forward with the thing I want to do and stop doing the things that I don't want to do. How do you break an old habit, a bad habit? Answer: you don't. You form a new habit that renders the old habit obsolete. This is a very powerful way of thinking about this. You're trying to stop doing this. Instead of just concentrating on stopping that, start doing something else. Because if you're trying to stop the thing, then you're thinking about the thing. So think about the new thing instead by doing that. This is a very strong tool for us. Now, some people will advise that you do something a little at a time to get into it, and other people will advise that you go all in all at once and keep doing it that way. This is a very personal choice that you have to make about how you are going to move forward. If we weigh the pros and cons of these, there's a lot of food for thought here. If you're going to run a half marathon, as we talked about a little while ago, if you try to go all in, you are probably going to hurt yourself. If you're not already a stamina exerciser, a runner, you're probably going to hurt yourself if you go out and you start trying to run 4 miles a day. You're probably not going to be able to do that. But if you run 1/8 of a mile a day, every day for a month, you're now a runner. And it's going to be much easier to build that up over time. And pretty soon you're at 1/4 mile a day. And then you're at a 1/2 mile a day, a mile a day. And it might take you 3 or 4 months to get there, depending on what kind of shape you're in at the beginning of this. But that can get you there. So that's the drip method. Now, there are people who have stories of, they wanted to join the military, and so they had to get in shape, or they were doing some selection for athletics, and they had let themselves go, and they had to get themselves back in shape. And physical exercise, I think, are great examples of this, where if you are the kind of person who has the willpower to just go all in and keep doing it, you go out and you run your 3 miles, and the next day you can hardly walk, but you go out and run 3 miles again, that is a method that can work. Personally, it's not my preferred method. And whichever method you use, if it's the all-in binging method or if it's just the drip method, I think the most important thing is that it needs to be daily. Because if you're going to build this new habit to render your old habit obsolete, daily is pretty much the most important aspect of that. If you are not practicing your guitar every day, can you really call yourself a guitar player? If you take a few days off here and there, that's going to come up. But if you're just hardly playing guitar, well, you're not much of a guitar player. Most authors I know have never finished a book. Kind of hard, in my opinion, for them to be referred to as authors. Most musicians I know have never written a song, or performed a show, or done a recording. Kind of hard to think about it that way. Are you really a musician? So get into that daily thing to where you can call yourself that thing. I'm a runner. I'm a musician. I'm a guitarist. I'm a painter. I'm a writer. Whatever it is, do that every day so that you can be that thing. And even if you're just doing a little bit, that's all right, because you're still doing. And if you're doing a lot every day, that's great too. Now, some things you might be in a comfort zone for something where you can simply binge finish it. So if your comfort zone is keeping you from digging up your backyard so that you can plant a new garden, okay, maybe you're just going to go out there and you're just going to knock that whole thing out in one day. And you're going to have sore hands the next day, but then your garden's done, right? Now you can just work in your garden as you need to. But some things are not like that. If you're trying to learn a new language, you can't binge learn a new language. That's not going to work. You've got to get into the daily thing to make it work. If you're going to be a musician, you can do the thing where, okay, I played my guitar for 5 hours today, but then if you don't play for another month, you're not going to get a lot out of that 5 hours. Where if you play for 10 minutes a day, you're going to retain so much more information out of that. It's going to be much better for you. So those are my thoughts on the binging versus the drip method. And with the drip method, what you want to do is you want to work up to where you are able to do much more every day. And then always keep in mind what your why is. Why am I doing this? What is my end goal? What is my why? And then you need to be more afraid of not doing it than you are of doing it. So go get it.